So, I'm sorry it's late. I would have liked to have had it out a few years ago. My publisher would have liked to have it out a few years ago. And of course, many of you probably would have liked to have it out. But I'm glad that it is what it is, because I think the book that you're now holding is a better book than what you would have had if you had it in 2007 or 2008. I could have thrown something out at that time. I certainly had enough in terms of rough page count, but I don't think you would have liked it as well. I certainly would not have liked it as well. And ultimately, you have to please yourself with these things. Yes?
Is there going to be a Duncan Egg collection coming out?
Is there going to be a Duncan Egg collection coming out? Yes, there is. I've signed a deal with Random House. There will actually be a number of Duncan Egg collections, but the first one, the one I have in the deal, will contain the first 4 novellas. That will be The Hedge Knight, The Sworn Sword, The Mystery Knight, and the 4th novella, yet to be written, which is one of the things I have to do when I end this. But that one will be initially published in an anthology called Dangerous Women, which is edited by myself and Gardner Dessois, which we're putting together. So it will appear in Dangerous Women, and 4 novellas will be published in a collection by Random House Bantam. That will not be, I want to do more with Duncan Egg. I want to take them through the whole career, so they'll ultimately be, 8, 12, 17 novellas, however many it takes to tell the story of their lives, and I'm writing them sort of in between each of the books. So it's going to take me a few years or decades to get it all done, but we all have these collections coming out. We also have the 3rd Duncan Egg novella, The Mystery Knight, where we'll be doing a comic book series graphic novel on that one, just as we did on the first 2, with the same creative team of Ben Avery on that and Mike S. Miller on the artwork. So yes, there.
When looking back at the whole story, starting with Game of Thrones, are there any characters who have been killed off that you wish at this point you hadn't killed them?
No, not really. Are there any characters, the question was, are there any characters who have been killed off that I wish I hadn't killed off? The major deaths in this have been planned, for some time, at least going back to midway through the first book when things were really falling into shape for me and I could see where I was going. And it is hard for me to kill these characters. I have considerable time and emotion invested in them. But it has to be done to move the story forward. And the story is ultimately what's the most important thing. Some of the minor characters, one thing, I'm writing a battle and I need 7 people to die. All right, who should die here? I look at my list of Night's Watch brothers and I say, okay, it should be Harry the Pimple and this guy and that guy. Okay, they're dead. But no, the major deaths are part and parcel of the design of the whole thing. So I know the upcoming deaths too. There will be some. You'll be surprised to hear. There is some in this new book, which, by the way, no spoilers in the questions, please. Because there are people who have not read Dance with Dragons yet, and there are probably people who are just reading the series for the first time and don't even know what's coming in Clash of Kings and Storm of Swords and so forth. So, question? Another question? Yes, back there.
What was your inspiration for starting the series, and has that changed over the series development?
My inspiration for starting the series, it just sort of came out of nowhere. I was actually working on another novel, a science fiction novel that I'd planned for some time and had a decade's worth of notes and ideas on, and suddenly I had this vision of the scene where these direwolf pups were found in the summer snow, and I sat down and wrote it. It was there so vividly. And I didn't know what it was part of. It certainly didn't fit the science fiction novel I was writing. But I wound up putting that novel aside and writing this novel, and writing a 2nd chapter and a 3rd chapter, and sort of getting to meet the characters. And at some point I drew a map that was sort of you know you're lost when you draw the map. And here we are today. I never know where this inspiration comes from. I'm not a believer in supernatural forces. I may make jokes about muses and so forth, but I don't really believe in them as the ancient Greeks did. I think it's all coming from me, from my subconscious brain, or my, I don't know, the right brain, the left brain, the id, the superego, Shugget's a whispering in my ear. But it's certainly not the rational part of my brain, It's never a case where I sit down and say, now I'm going to think of an idea. It's just, that would be cool. Wait a minute, yeah. Or I start to see a character or a scene, sometimes a setting. Often it begins with a character or a scene, a moment, and then it grows from there. I've often said that writers, there are two kinds of writers. There are the architects and the gardeners. And the architects plan everything, they blueprint everything, they design everything ahead of time, first word of the first sentence. And the gardeners just sort of plant the seed and see what comes up. And no writer is truly one or the other. I think to be a writer you have to have elements of both. But I'm much more a gardener than I am an architect. And always have been. And that's maybe partly why I'm so slow, because I think one of the effects of being a gardener rather than an architect is you find yourself sometimes wandering off along dead ends or writing things that don't lead what they are, and then you have to go back and cut it. But it's worked for me for the last 40 years of my career, so I'm not going to change at this point. So we'll just all have to be patient. Yes?
What do you think about being called America's Tolkien?
I like being called America's Tolkien. It's very cool. I love Tolkien. He was a great writer. Lord of the Rings is one of the great books of the 20th century. Had a profound effect on me when I was young. That being said, I always try to caution people when they hear that not to expect Tolkien when they read my books, because we're very different writers. We're both writing epic fantasy, but he was a man of his time, and very different times. He was born in the 19th century, a product of the English class system, very educated man, world-class linguist, Oxford Don, spoke Old Norse, Old English, could translate Beowulf, could invent entire languages. In some ways, he was not actually a professional writer so much. He almost did Lord of the Rings as kind of a hobby. And the Silmarillion was really his great work. And of course, he was shaped by his experiences in the trenches of World War I. And all of this helped produce his work. All of it is grist to the mill. I was born in 1948 to a blue-collar family in Bayonne, New Jersey. My father was a longshoreman. I was educated in public schools, and I'm not a world-class linguist. I am weaned on like pulp fiction and science fiction and comic books rather than Beowulf. I like Beowulf, mind you, but I think Spider-Man. So different people produce different sorts of books. I take the American Tolkien just to mean that they think I'm as good as Tolkien, which is an enormous compliment. Not that I'm writing the same thing as Tolkien, which would be an erroneous and gross misstatement. My work is not remotely like Tolkien's, except in the sense that there are, guys with swords, hacking at each other from time to time.
At the same time, or just when the mood takes you? Do you have to drink coffee when you're writing?
I sit down every day at more or less the same time. I'm not, super punctual, but basically I get up in the morning and, usually I'm at my office by 9 or 9:30, and I do indeed begin with a couple cups of coffee, and the first thing I do is boot up and read all my email, and sometimes there's pressing email that I have to answer, and at some point later my assistant Kai comes leisurely strolling in, and he sort of sets up a barrier to guard me from phone calls or knock on the door for the rest of the day, and then I switch over to my other computer. I have two computers. I have my PC, my Windows PC, on which I cruise the internet and surf and read blogs and write my own blog and get my email. And then I have my writing computer, which is a DOS machine running WordStar 4.0. And I switch to that when I get into write my fiction. Hopefully in a good, uninterrupted, please don't disturb me period of time. I don't like any interruptions when writing. I like to kind of lose myself in the work and the world. And having that, I get a lot of shit about having that DOS machine, but I am a creature of habit. I continue to believe that WordStar is the optimal word processing system. They haven't improved on it. They've just made it stupider and harder with these newer things. I've occasionally been forced to work on Word, and I hate it. And also, it has the great virtue of being completely separate from the internet. I mean, not only software separate, but hardware separate. It is literally not connected to the internet. So I cannot be hacked. I cannot be infected with any worm or virus or anything. I mean, my Windows machine can and has been. I've gotten viruses. I've lost huge chunks of my email. AOL, I was on AOL for years, and it was like regular clockwork. Every year and a half or so, the AOL would burp and lose 3,000 emails, which was always kind of annoying but liberating at the same time. Now I was no longer 3,000 emails behind. But I've never lost any of my writing. It's all there. DOS and WordStar are stable as rocks and immune to any of this crap. So that's the secondary reason I preserve them. On a good day, if the writing is going well, I look up and it's dark outside, and my second cup of coffee is still sitting behind me now, ice cold. On a bad day, I'll work for a while, I'll sweat blood, I'll look at what I wrote yesterday and decide it's crap and rewrite it all, and maybe I'll write a paragraph, and then I'll look at the clock and say maybe I should check my email again. And I've gotten some urgent emails, and I'll read my email, and one of them will say, "Hey, did you see this review of your work?" And I haven't, so I better go check that review of your work. The internet is a constant distraction there, but I try to keep so there are good days, there are bad days. I'm not one of these writers who says I sit down every day and reliably produce 4 pages or 8 pages or 10 pages, whatever it is. I have days where I do produce 10 pages, and those are great days, and I have days where I'm lucky if I can progress a sentence. Or I have other days where I actually lose ground, where I get up and to try to get in the mood, I review the last chapter I wrote for that character, and I actually decide that it's not very good, and I wind up rewriting it all day, or tearing it out, or restructuring it, or going backwards. Again, not an efficient process, but it is my own, so there it is.